The Pat Mayo Experience.
Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings. 2020 Shriners Open DraftKings picks and preview. This is the new time slot for the golf pick show during the swing season. Obviously, the Masters is going to be a little bit different, but as NFL season is going on, regular season at least, although I guess that depends on how far the regular season goes into the new year, I suppose. But Wednesday, late morning, early afternoon is when the golf show is going to be coming out. Just to break up the week a little bit, I'll be doing a first look show either Mondays or Tuesdays. It'll be around 10 minutes. Preview the course a little bit, early lanes, then we'll really dig into it on Wednesdays. Plus, more time to research, more information to be had. Like if we had recorded this yesterday, we wouldn't have known that Tony Finau contracted COVID and is no longer playing in this field. We've been talking about like, hey, you should probably play Tony Finau, which would have been bad advice because he's not playing. Makes sense, right? If you want to get access to the best tools in the biz for golf, go to fantasynational.com right now and get yourself a discount. If you go to fantasynational.com/Mayo, we have the simulator, the most customizable stat engine on the planet. Build your own model, mix, condition model, ownership projection, lineup generator. It is all there for you. Weekly, monthly, yearly, whatever you do. Yearly is like the move, especially if you use the Mayo discount. Super cheap at that point. So highly recommend fantasynational.com. If you're looking for my DraftKings cheat sheet, it will be up on DKPlaybook.com. If you're looking for my favorite pivots, that is up on FTNDaily.com right now as you watch this. Highly recommend you go check that out. Remember to smash the like button for the video and give me your favorite low-owned play below $8,000. You know what? Not even low-owned. Just give me your favorite play below $8,000 for the Shriners Open on DraftKings this week. And if you are listening to the audio version of this podcast, please, people have stopped doing this so much. It's the currency of the show. Please go leave a 5-star rating for the show. And if you're feeling good about it, take the 10 seconds, leave a review, be like, hey, good show. It really does help. So please go on with that. If you're watching football, if you're watching golf, whatever it might be, please subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast and Mayo Media Network YouTube channel. Really help me out there. Let's get into it. Joining me from FTNDaily.com and FTNBets.com, Skylar Hoke. He's going back-to-back on the show. I mean, you're available in the mornings. This is really a good look for you.
Hey, that's always a big quality in life. I think showing up and being available is huge, so I appreciate it, Pat. It's nice to have back-to-back weeks and get the best field we've seen since the U.S. Open, too.
It is it's the strongest field at the Shriners in like 38 years, but we're also going to talk a little bit about Wentworth on the Euro Tour. What time does that actually tee off? Is it like 1 a.m.?
Yeah, I think Lock's right around 2:30. Normally they run it, so yeah. So Wentworth, obviously the premier European Tour event on the season. So BMW PGA Championship, confirming lock for you here. It is going to be at 2:35 a.m. Eastern time. Yep.
All right, so we'll do the Shriners first, then we'll jump into Wentworth at the end of the show. If you're just here for Euro stuff, then just use the time code, skip over the PGA. But I don't know why you would want to do that, because look at this field. It's pretty good. If we go to the top of the pricing, we have a former winner of this event. Coming off a win, it was a major. Bryson DeChambeau, 7.5 to 1, but he's 11-8 on DraftKings. Webb Simpson's an even 11. Cantlay is 10-4. Tony Finau would have been 10-2, but he is out of this event. So you have those top three guys. It appears to me like people are kind of off Cantlay, and maybe that will change now that Finau has withdrawn from the tournament, that everyone who is using Finau is just going to go up to Patrick Cantlay. I suppose they could go down to Hideki Matsuyama as well. But at the same time, it struck me as really weird that a guy who's never finished worse than second at this tournament wasn't getting the buzz as the other top guys.
Yeah, it's almost like there's two molds that which people are going to build that. They're going to be going up to Bryson and trying to, keep that hot run he's on going, and then jumping. If you're going to play him, you obviously really can't do much in the 9Ks because he's now, at 11-8, which really affects the remaining 5 guys on your team. Or we see the chalk that's coming in, good chalk in some sense in the 9Ks, but people are either looking, I think, to build with 2 or 3 of those, or Bryson. And Cantley's definitely the forgotten of the 3. Even Webb, in a sense, is going to be significantly lower owned with Bryson. But with the domination that he had at Winged Foot, the experience he has here, I'm having a difficult time not just locking in Bryson at the top and then making it work from there on out.
Well, consistency is king when it comes to daily fantasy sports. Like, look at me. I'm a consistent loser. I do the same things every single week. So I'm not going to use Bryson at this tournament because I like this balance build. I think I'm only going to play 3 lineups this week. Play it in the 10, the large one, the 5, and then go into like the $100 single entry, the $200 single entry, that kind of thing. Really narrow down my player pool this week. And for me, I hadn't planned on using Cantlay. And I'll really have to dig into the ownership percentages because I see his number going up a little bit more right now. Like I have Bryson projected around 22%. I have Webb coming in around 19%, Cantlay around 13%. But obviously that's still sucking in some of the Tony Finau ownership. I'm curious to see where that ends up going. I would imagine most people actually do go down to either Hideki or Morikawa just because it allows you to build a more balanced roster. That it's a really interesting circumstance. Like I don't love Cantlay. I get why people don't like Cantlay this week. He really hasn't played all that well since the restart. He's been wildly inconsistent. But this is a place, and let me throw this out to you with TPC Summerland. You have Bryson's a former winner here. You have Cantlay's a former winner here. And you start looking at some of the guys that have played really well at this tournament. Is Muirfield Village a crossover course for this place?
It's certainly the winner crossover. I mean, if you look at the last 3 winners it was, right, have all, I mean, if you include, I mean, you talked about Morikawa on your preview show where he won at Muirfield Village for the work day. But it's interesting because I more or less see it almost playing out again like what last week has, and almost even Corrales too. I mean, fairways aren't difficult to hit. You know, you can just kind of bomb it out here. The greens in regulation are pretty easy. You think you have to run hot with the putter, but some of these guys have shown some accuracy. The winners, I think like the previous 5 winners all have been top 25 in accuracy, which is a little weird based off the rough length. But there's no lying when those that have done well at Muirfield have shown success here.
Yeah, I'm just looking right now on Fantasy National. Over the past 5 years, the players that have gained the most strokes total, it's Cantlay, Bryson, Finau, Webb, and Hadley. So Finau's another guy who's obviously he's never won at Muirfield Village, but played really well there over the years. So I just thought it was an interesting angle to look at. Maybe it just is the winner, but that would still lead me to Morikawa anyway, because that's really what I wanted to do this week. When we go into the 9K level, I mean, I opened up my sportsbook. Use DraftKings Sportsbook. You open up DraftKings Sportsbook, and at the time, when Finau was still in the field, they were hanging Morikawa to 22. I was like, why is Bryson 7.5 and Cantlay like 14-1 and Morikawa is 22? Like, it's not that I think that Morikawa has a better chance of winning than these guys, but I feel like he has around the same chance, yet he was like 3 times the odds of Bryson. I thought that was really strange.
Yeah, it just didn't make sense from that odds perspective. It was the most glaring one when you open it up and see some guy that has 3, victories on the PGA Tour in 9 months. From that standpoint, I guess if you include the shutdown, 9 months right about, and 22-1 in this field, yeah, that's a steal of a price for him. And to get him underneath 10K, I mean, it's deserving that he's going to come in at the ownership that he has and starting builds with him. Because, I mean, statistically, it lines up perfectly for him. So I have no problem. The problem is, the one, I guess, problem I do have is if I'm going to go with Bryson, it's really difficult to play Bryson and Morikawa or even Bryson and Wolf together if we stack the pair that has found themselves in final groups now, at multiple tournaments. But you just really have to dumpster dive if you're going to take Bryson and also want to play Morikawa and Wolf, which makes it difficult. If
you play one of them, I just put a lineup with all 3 of them in it together, Bryson, Wolf, and Morikawa, then you're left with 6,300 left for each of your players, which okay. I think I could squeeze out this week because there are guys at the very bottom I don't mind. But this kind of goes back to what we saw the past few weeks, that there's not a huge difference between 6,000 and 7,400 this week.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like there's some lower owned guys. I mean, realistically, I like Scheffler a ton too, like at 9,400. I kind of group those 3 together of Morikawa, Wolf, Scheffler together. And I think I actually like Scotty almost the most of the 3 for the price savings you can get on him. But even in that sense, like, again, you're paying premium dollar. I mean, Scotty's price went down $2,000 in 1 week that he did make the cut. Of course, the field is significantly different, but he was 11,400 last week, and now he's down to 9,400. So he shook off that rust from round 1 miraculously in round 2 and was middling over the weekend. But I think, Scheffler is just as well in the mix as those other 2.
I will be giving out my final betting cheat sheet, or just my picks, at the end of this show, because I do want to talk. I still have room for one more guy on my card, and I'm really torn on who it should be, because there's one guy I really want to bet who almost fills the same sort of role as Scheffler. It's funny, my first 3 clicks of this week after doing my first round of research were Morikawa, Wolff, and Scheffler. Just boom, boom, boom. I was like, I can build a lineup with those 3 guys, no problem. And I do think that, like, right now I have Wolff being the highest projected guy. When I wrote my Golf Digest article, he was my pick to win. I think that any time that you see that Bryson has played well at a course, just Matthew Wolff will probably play well at that course too. We're on bent grass. Morikawa is probably going to play well at that course. All 3 of his wins have been on bent so far. So that's, and listen, whenever you have a drivable par 4, you probably want Colin Morikawa. That guy dominates short par 4s because he can just pull out driver and be ultimately accurate versus everyone else in the field with it. And then Scheffler, I didn't bet Scheffler, but I do like the DraftKings price. But all 3 of those guys are going to come in really highly owned. So when you look at the rest of the $9,000 level, like the full scope, Hideki is the most expensive in that tier. Then it's Morikawa, then English, then Wolff, then Day, Scheffler, Im, Casey, Sergio, and Ricky Fowler. So I also like Ricky Fowler this week. I bet Ricky Fowler this week. But no one's using Casey, no one's using Sergio, and absolutely nobody is using Jason Day. Now, I get that, but at the same time, is there any one of those 3 guys that is the ultimate pivot play here? I mean, by the term definition of a pivot play, they're all pivot plays, but is one of these a good pivot play?
Yeah, I would think that, it hurt seeing Sergio win last week from the perspective of we've been on him for so long. We
fucking bet him for like 6 straight months since the restart, and then all of a sudden he closes his eyes and he learns how to putt.
I mean, and that's where, like, I've kind of reflected a little bit over the time being, and I've thought that the last few weeks were going to be putting contests, and to see him win a putting contest, there's 2 molds of doing it. You can just hit it so close like he's done, and then putt field average or a little bit better, and you're there. That's a top 5 for someone like that. So to me, if I'm viewing last week as a similar type of course, and no one's going to go back to somebody who has been striking it, of the 3, I think Sergio, who is the cheapest, is probably my favorite of those 3 pivot plays.
So I can see Sergio in this spot. The one I actually really do like is Paul Casey, just because he has been consistent both off the tee and through approach this entire time. He's actually putting kind of well, and you only see him at marquee events that you kind of get shook from time to time. Like we saw him at the US Open. We saw him at the BMW, the Northern Trust. Yes, he did play Wyndham and came 31st. That's been his like one down tournament, and he came 31st. Yeah, he came 49th in the Northern Trust, but that's probably like the strongest field of the year. But he's showing up in these premier events. This field is strong, but it's nothing to the extent of what we've seen from that. And the fact that he's not losing like 6 strokes putting per event anymore, he's like right around field average. It does feel like I don't have the utmost confidence in him, but if I was going to go to one of these guys, it would probably be him between Day, Casey, and Sergio.
And I think back to what he said, I think it would have been at the PGA Championship when he was in contention, that not having fans is actually like really, calming him down. And he's somebody who obviously had Sunday struggles that, that is playing to a positive to his sense. And his tee to green game at Winged Foot was way stronger than I thought looking back on it. So I don't mind that either.
So yeah, I guess if I end up, maybe I'll chuck him into one of 3 and see how that goes. Any love for like Sung Jae, or who else do we have here in the 9s? I mean, are you on Team Ricky? Because his ball striking at Winged Foot was tremendous. He couldn't putt, which is the weirdest thing I've ever seen for Ricky.
Yeah, I'm still never really a Ricky backer. I mean, the price is getting better. His odds are getting better. You know what I mean? To grab almost a 40-1, like you said, you got this week. I think that is decent. Truthfully, I would rather go into the 8Ks, because if I'm going to play Bryson and I'm not going to play 3 guys in the 6Ks, I actually like going to 2 guys in the 8s, where my next pivot would be below Ricky, is the guy actually $100 cheaper, and who I think may go lower owned than Ricky too, is Kokrak. I really like Kokrak this week. I feel like the driving setup, the approach game, I mean, he's had 4 straight top 25 finishes. I know his price has been elevated, but I think he's going to go under-owned, and statistically lines up very well from what I'm looking at, of course.
I find it's always tough with Kokrak, where, I mean, it's no different than Sergio. It's like, when are you going to get that week where the putter actually comes through? And we got that at the U.S. Open. Now, can that sustain itself and happen again, or is he going to go back to losing strokes putting in like 8 straight tournaments? I don't know. But the ball striking, he's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight tournaments, gaining off the tee, gaining through approach. I can see that. I think a lot of people are going to go to Abraham Answer or Louis at 88 and 87. I'll probably go hard pass on those guys. The one I really wanted to talk about that no one seems to be using, just from the projection ownership I see right now, like, people are going to own Henley. He's a statistical darling, but he hasn't played in ages. He hasn't played since the FedEx Cup playoffs. But if we keep going below him and we go to like the 83, the 82, the 81, people seem to be gravitating towards Neiman. Everyone's going to use Cameron Davis because he was mega chalk last week and came through for everyone. But no one wants to use Will Zalatoris anymore. He was like the most popular player in the world last week. You get a huge reduction in his price. He's 70-1 to win this tournament, and legit no one's using him. I'm going to use him. He was the guy I was thinking about betting at 70-1.
Oh, I did. I pulled the trigger. It was the first bet when I opened up. I think I got a 66 for him. Like, for 2 rounds where he still was, the same Will Zalatoris that we know, his ball striking was fine. He's been on quite the run, and I'm sure he was exhausted. That a weekend off is a good thing, I think, in some way. Of course, it burned, a couple of my lineups last week, but to get him at 8,300 and to get him low owned for something that should be a ball striker's paradise, I love going back to Zalatoris. And please, the rest of you guys can fade him. I think at that price, I am definitely, he's my, favorite play. If I'm going, I can get Bryson, Kokrak, and Zalatoris and still make things work pretty decently.
Would you consider not going with Kokrak and moving up a little bit in that spot and sacrificing on the back end?
So, yeah, I think it would, again, just coming to wanting to play those guys lower in the 6s. I guess if you could get to Scotty, like that, I think you'd have a tough time getting to Wolf. But if you could get to Scotty, then I am intrigued there. Or if you're going to play, I guess if you liked Ricky or Casey, you could probably make things work without having to play them in price. I just think there's a big mistake in the high 7s as well with pricing. That's going to be tough to avoid too. It's just, I don't know. Because like Cam Davis is going to be really chalk again. Do you like Davis at all?
No. I mean, I like Davis. I don't want to say that I don't like him. I like him fine. I don't like him at 25% with guys that I think are better players right around him.
Yeah, that's the same thing I think. But that's the tough part when I think of last week when it was Burns and Doc Redman, who we'll talk about, were the 20-plus owned guys in the 9Ks. It's a different ballgame when it's Morikawa, Wolf, and Scheffler. You don't expect those guys to have that off of a week and miss the cut. Like it wouldn't have been that much of a surprise like Sam Burns did last week. So that's where the chalk this week, when you come to Davis, it definitely is something I think we can fade too.
Yeah, and if he burns you, he burns you. Eventually, if you start fading this like low 8s chalk with guys that, and maybe Cam Davis is taking a leap as a player and he's just different than what we expect him to be, but it's been running so hot for him and he didn't get there. Eventually, this kind of peters out a little bit. Just to go back to the 9s for a second, like we just kind of glossed over Harris English. Like, should we be glossing over Harris English? Like, I just find it so uncomfortable to see his name up there with all these other guys.
We probably shouldn't gloss over what he's probably been arguably the second best player in this field over since the restart. You know what I mean? That's probably his title, he would say. Realistically was right there if Bryson didn't, take off like he did on Sunday. I mean, Harris has gained a stroke and a half per round since the restart. It's just, I can never click his name, especially at 9,700. Like he was 7,700 at the U.S. Open, probably an oversight for where ownership landed for him. But 9,700, I just seem to think the other guys are going to win more than what he is. And at that price, I don't know. Maybe it's just a Harris English thing, but I don't find myself being there.
All right. So who is the guy in the upper 7s that you think is mispriced? Is it Doc Redman?
Yeah, it's Doc. I mean, he goes down from what he was last week, 9,700 down to 7,900, standard Doc. I mean, I just don't view him like that much different than he made the cut. He was still fine from the ball striking standpoint, finished 28th. I just don't think he's deserving of a 1,900, discount, even with the field strength coming up. I mean, long term, this guy's ball striking is, top 10 in this field, where I have I feel much better playing him at 7,900 than I do Cam Davis at 8,200. And maybe that's a mistake. And maybe that's where I can find myself finding more salary is getting off Doc. But man, he sets up so well in my opinion here.
Well, that's a problem. I like Doc. I mean, Munoz is always just kind of on the radar for me, but I probably won't be using him this week. But then everyone else in the 7Ks, ugh, like I don't love it. Like I faded Sam Burns last week. I'm not going back to Sam Burns. Long-term form, Harold Varner rates out really well for me at 7,500, but it just seems like it's too much money. Like long-term Brendan Steele rates out really well for me at 7,200. I think my next play would actually be going back to Ben Ann, who's $3,000 cheaper this week. And he lost 6.5 strokes putting last week in 2 rounds. Like, no, he's not a good putter. That's probably not going to happen again.
Agreed. It's just egregious to see somebody drop that much salary when I get the field strength differences, but these are type of players that you can't just evaluate them on a 2-round basis, like we talked about, where I have no problem going back to him. And the best part is he could potentially be just as low owned as he was last week at the salary, even though he's $7,200 or $7,100. I like somebody else right there at $7,100 who has been, I would say decent, since the restart. I think he popped up at the PGA Championship where he finished, I think, 10th. He's coming off a miscut. But I like Joel Dahman a little bit. Any interest there?
No, not really. Like I can get it, but this is just not a range. This entire 7K range is just not where I want to be. Like if I was going specifically on the type of player that I think would play well here, it'd be like Ryan Palmer, who just periodically pops up once every 3 weeks in the ball striking department. He's $7,400, but even that, just honestly, everyone's going to use Christoph Ventura down here at $7,100.
100%. Yeah, he'll be like 15 plus, and again. He goes from the 9Ks 2 weeks ago into the 7Ks and then stays there after a strong week last week. So some of this pricing just doesn't make a ton of sense. But yeah, he's going to be the definite chalk. But is there much difference in these lower guys to the higher sixers? No to that point. So I think if you're going to get top heavy, you're playing 2 or 3 above 9K, you're playing Bryson. This is the range we're going to have to live down here.
Along with Ben Ann, and he kind of fits my Memorial corollary with Muirfield Village. He tends to play pretty well there. Streelman would be another one who kind of pops up on that list. If you mentioned that the players who have actually ended up winning here end up inside like the top 25 in terms of driving accuracy, Streelman would fit that prototype. And it's not like he's having a bad year. He's actually having a pretty good, since the restart for Kevin Streelman. Yeah.
I don't mind Streelman at all, actually. Getting him at that pretty cheap price. And I think that's, we talked last week and we made up a narrative, not a narrative, but made up different constructions of what you could do with the lineups. And was there ways to get where the accuracy type would have mattered? I don't know if it's going to happen as much this week, but that mold of player, I didn't even mention him in the 8Ks. We just talked Zalatoris, but a Zach Johnson Streelman combo, if it's going to play in that type of sense, I think ZJ's a little sneaky and overlooked at 8,500, but that's just kind of a overall strategy piece of a lineup build. Do you think there's any merit to building a couple guys that may not be distance, but are more plotters that can run hot like Kevin Na did last year?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Na is another one that we just didn't even talk about. He was last year's winner after he gained over 14 strokes putting, but he's another kind of accuracy if the irons get hot, which we know they can. That'd be the one thing that I would want from my accuracy guys. Do they have the potential to lead this field in strokes gained on approach? And whether it's Zach Johnson, whether it's Kevin Na, whether it's Kevin Streelman, I would think that they could. That they probably won't, but they have that upside. There's a lot of accuracy guys that just don't.
Yeah, ZJ did lead. I think he led round 4 in strokes gained approach last week at a strong weekend. Better approach recently, so that's why he popped up on that mold. But I think there's some darts in the 6Ks that do have some extreme approach upside that we can get lucky with and build those top heavy lineups with.
So let's talk about the 6Ks. There is one name in here that I think that we have to kind of hammer down on of what we want to do. And for me, it's just a pass and it's a wait and see. But Molinari is back in the field for the first time since the restart. I don't know why he picked this specific event to come back to, but he's $6,700. He's like the 30th best player in the world. He hasn't played in 8 months.
Yeah, it just seems reading the tea leaves with him. He just doesn't care as much about professional golf anymore, and more power to him. He's got all the money in the world now after such a great run he went on. But, He played 4 events so far this calendar year, didn't make any cuts. The only one he played 4 rounds in was WGC Mexico, where it was guaranteed. So it's not worth it. That price is crazy to look at and think about him, but I would have preferred to see him over at Wentworth because he's dominated that course, but his family's in California. He just seems to be easing back into play. So I agree. It's just a wait and see on him.
Has anyone taken a more precipitous drop-off in terms of ownership and pricing ever on DraftKings than Will Gordon from Punta Cana to Will Gordon today at $6,300?
It's absurd. And the same people that played him 2 weeks ago should still play him this week. If it's going to be off the tee, Will Gordon, until last week, was the first tournament of 2020 that he's lost off the tee on, but he was breaking 30% in that contest, which was just absurd. And to think he's going to be 3% at 6,300, you have to sprinkle if he's your guy and that you're thinking, he's going to continue on, because that off the tee game has shown such spikes that I agree. Just don't give up on him if you cared that much. If you weren't off him the whole time, there's no reason to find him now. But, I kind of like, again, if we just stay with kind of that mold of some ball striking and going to, do you think Tyler McCumber can run it back for like a 3rd straight top 10? Because he's been hot these last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I bet him top 20. I bet him to win at 175 to 1. He's $6,500. I like Tyler McCumber. You sold me on him last week. I used him. He was good. I'm going to go back to the well this time around. It's not like he's going to be 15% owned. He might be like 5, if that. People don't even know who this guy is. So after missing 7 straight cuts, he's posted back-to-back top 10s. Now, if he goes out and shoots like plus 20, I'm not going to be super stunned. He's $6,500. But I think that's where I want to start. And I think that's why you can jam in 2 9K guys and Bryson if you really want to. You have McCumber at 65. MJ Defu just keeps popping up on leaderboards.
Yes.
Like, you can go to him. He's $6,500. Martin Laird at $6,400. The ball striking is still there. Jason Duffner, the guy couldn't make a putt last week, but the ball striking, once again, still there. And then if you want to go down to the bottom at 6K, I liked what I saw at a Graham Dillette in that second round at Corrales. Why not?
I knew you'd bring up Graham today. It was a lock. He shot 8 under on that second round. Like, that was awesome to see. And if you would think of old Graham Dillette, this is the perfect course of which he would have excelled on. So taking a flyer in there, you're doing it with 3 lineups. That's bold with him, but I think he is definitely one to be early on if that form is there. I'd like to go back to Dafu, who you mentioned, who I wrote up last week on FTN, and he's just somebody who has eaten up the mini tour scene and just never cracked through with consistency. And now getting to have him, with this week, he's a sponsor's exemption. So he was guaranteed playing in here. He doesn't have the stress of playing the Monday qualifier, barely seeing the field or the course on Tuesday, Wednesday. His approach game last week led the field at the Sanderson. When he was at the work day, he was leading approach after 3 rounds. This kid can ball. So I'm definitely in on MJ. I think you can pair McCumber and MJ and then get real, top heavy with it.
Yeah, if you even just do that, and I might end up playing more than 3 lineups now that I want to play Graham Dillette. That probably 33% Graham Dillette. It's not great. So, but I do like McCumber a lot. So if you go Bryson, Morikawa, Defu, McCumber, you now have $7,700 left for whoever you want. Is there anyone else? I like Duffner this week. I like Duffner every single week, but at the same time, if he can just putt field average, Sergio, he's essentially like Sergio in a weird way. He's not as good of a ball striker as Sergio, but consistency in terms of ball striking, it's there almost every week.
Well, and you brought up your comp of Muirfield too, with Duffner. So if you're playing that mold, I definitely, he gained 6 strokes ball striking last week, right? He made the cut, so he
he missed he missed the cut.
Oh no, he missed the cut.
So
that was 2 rounds. Okay, so still with that, the ball striking is what it is with him. You just have to your point, run hot with that putter. But 6,400, you take that chance. A guy, it's stretching, but it's on that major medical too. That Dillette said, who was better than Duffner in ball striking last week, and he made the cut. Is Camilo Villegas made the cut. Is this back? Your tweet Thursday morning last week is, are we back in 2016? We've been winning all the money. He was really, really good tee to green last week. I think he was second to Sergio.
Really? I didn't. That just kind of eluded me. I wasn't even looking at that. I don't know about Camillo. He's still like the most like lean golfer on the planet. He stole that title away from Rafa Cabrera Bello. It was his. Rafa took it. Camillo's back with it right now. Does he still do like the spider reading of the putts?
Honestly, I don't know. The only thing that I have seen on Camillo recently, for those that weren't following on the Corn Ferry, his daughter passed away recently, and he's had an emotional comeback and played pretty well since that. Like, he literally, looking at the strokes gained last week, he almost lost 6 strokes putting, and he still finished 23rd last week. So if you want to run hot with a 1 week set of data, like Camillo and Duffner, I mean, they're $100 off. Like, he did stripe it last week.
Interesting. So maybe that's what I'll end up doing. Maybe I'll end up playing like 10 lineups, really kind of filter down who I like at the top. Use like 80% of those guys, whether it be just use some combination of Bryson, Cantlay, Wolf, Morikawa, Casey, and Scheffler. Throw Zalatoris into that mix too, and then just take like 8 of these like bottom end 6K guys and just kind of like shuffle them through the bottom of my lineups. Yep.
And that's the way I like to play too. I mean, I prefer, a tight core where you can hit. If you're going to hit it, you're going to have that right combo, and if, Scheffler, Morikawa, Zalatoris are all top 5, you hope, 3 of those guys down low make the cut, and you can make some noise. So that's the way I prefer it too. And I'm going to stay in the 6s this afternoon. Like on FTN Daily, I write the 7 under 7 article every Wednesday. So that'll be up this afternoon, where we'll go a little bit deeper in explanation on some of these guys, but we're hitting really everybody from that range. Our boy JB Holmes is back in the field again this week.
He did me
how bad was he?
He did me so. All of my guys did me so fucking dirty on Sunday at Sanderson. I went into Sunday at Sanderson being like, I think Snedeker's going to win. This is going to be great. Then I looked at the leaderboard after the fact. Every single player who finished inside the top 20 was even or under par on Sunday, except one guy, Sky. That was Brandt Snedeker.
Nice. Yep. Classic Brandt. And then, before we move on to Euro, I did want to mention too, who I'm going back after his strong performance in the Corrales, would have been Justin Sue. So Justin Sue plays out of TPC Summerlin. His home course got the sponsors exemption, so he's coming off 14th and then a 33rd, and he's ripped up that little IQ, the local IQ series for the guys who can't play in like China or Latin America or Canada. He had 3 top 10s on that, comes in with a 14th Corrales, and now he's at his home course. So I bet him, and I like him a lot in the 6Ks too.
Well, what are his odds? 225?
So he opened.
I'll get it.
Yeah, I saw him 250. Yep.
All right, let's go here. 10.
So, I mean, there's guys that live out there that can just play differently in this altitude and condition. So I like Sue quite a bit.
All right, so I'll add Sue to that like jabroni player. But what's he, $6,200? All right, here we go. We're building a card now too. Does Scott Harrington lead a tournament every single week, and no one ever notices?
Yeah, I don't get his game. Like, I mean, what he miscut 14th. 14th, what was Corrales? Yeah, when he played well. I mean, he's long off the tee, like long and straight, I think. But I can't get around on him.
Should we be going?
It is crazy looking at.
I was gonna say, should we
Will
just
Gordon at 6,300?
I know it's really bizarre. I never used Will Gordon anyway, so I'm not like too concerned about him being $6,300. Because if I wasn't gonna use him like when he was a very obvious play, I'm probably not gonna use him when he's not an obvious play at the same time. I'll just go back to my losers like Ben Ann every single week. But should we just be rolling with Henrik Norlander at $6,900?
That's probably the smart thing to do. I was talking with Axis yesterday, and it's like, yeah, I'm in on Norlander. He's just like a pure by the numbers guy. And I mean, the 4th he had last week was quite strong. I mean, it was backing off, 3 straight missed cuts, but that stretch that he had, it would have been at Rocket Mortgage, right? When he was like the most chalked and came through for everybody. But yeah, I think it is, a pretty decent misprice at getting him in the 6K. So he's probably, if I'm asking for the safest one, quote unquote, I think he's pretty fair to play with. I mean, Shank at the same price too has made a ton of cuts in a row. I think he has probably in this field the longest standing cut made streak, and getting that at 6,900 too.
Yeah, like the inventor of basketball, Matthew Naismith, is down there. But I think I'm just going to stick to
He
that.
played well last week.
I know, yeah. I think I'm just going to stick to the 65 and below. Maybe Norlander. I'll consider that. But the guy's generating some ownership in the 9K or in the 6Ks right now, if people are wondering. It appears like it's going to be Straka, Norlander, Shank, and Gooch. Those 4 guys. And none of them will probably crack 10%.
Okay. No, so it's fair. But yeah, I'm with you. And I mean, I'm guilty of it, like being early on these guys who don't have much status and, flash here for a couple weeks. But I mean, McCumber's now done it back-to-back weeks. Sue did it in the Barracuda, and then he did it at Corrales. This is a field step up, but I just think it's worth it to be early on low ownership at a cheap price to jam in the guys we love up top. Because now that I think about, instead of potentially playing Doc, you can save $1,700, getting down to Sue, and then make things definitely work with some lineups. So I know that's a big stretch between those two, but if you are going to play multiple of Morikawa, Wolf, Scheffler, they're going to break 20%. So you're going to have to get unique somewhere. I think you can do that deep in the 6s.
All right, let's move to the BMW PGA Championship at Wentworth on the European Tour. Now, this is a field. That's mainly my main.
The best one we've seen.
That's basically my main comment. Patrick Reed is playing. Official European Tour lifetime member Patrick Reed.
Yes, the beloved Patrick Reed over there in Europe. They couldn't wait to see him, and he came here last year, finished 4th, played well. I mean, this field last year got to have Vic in it. It had Horschel. Like, this is the premier, tournament for the European Tour. This course is just amazing. And it'd be fun to watch. I mean, if anything, you're going to wake up early and watch this. This is the field in the tournament. Rose came over, so I think I'm not going to really stay as much up top. You never really know with some of these top Europeans. I think I'm going to live in like the 40 to 1 range-ish, and then throw some darts at the bottom like I always like to do.
All right, so give us some names. Like, if we're constructing DraftKings lineups first, if we do go with one of the studs and who we want to build around, who are you looking for to be? Because it sounds like it's going to be super rainy, super soft, that it may not play like Wentworth normally does. Yeah,
so it looks like it could be gross for the first few days and potentially a wave advantage. So last week, and this is something, again, if you're playing Euro DFS and you're looking for an edge, paying attention to weather that people don't, like, that is, a big thing to do, because last week there was a 4-stroke wave difference between the AM PM and the PM AM. So it could potentially play out right now. It looks like the late starters on Thursday might get the better of it. And I'm not willing to fully stack my lineups just yet, but I would say still statistically, he was gutless down the stretch, but Fleetwood should be perfect here. Like, I don't know if anyone watched, but he missed 2 5-footers in the last 5 holes to lose. But he's just, his tee to green game when he goes to Europe is just, he blitzes the field. He led the field by 4 strokes last week in total tee to green gained. So he's my one up top. I think you're going to get Rose at extreme low ownership, but it's Justin Rose. It's just the same kind of thing you'd look at. He's done well here at Wentworth. So if you're looking to get contrarian to start your builds, I would say Rose is the guy, but Tommy's my favorite above 10K.
Okay. And if we go down just a little bit into this like next tier of solid European player, like, should we just be going with like what wins at this course? It's like a bit of accuracy, but supreme ball striking, right? Like, if players who gain a bunch off the tee, but are also accurate, that's what we're looking for?
Pretty much. You pretty much need to play from the fairway. It's pretty tree lined at this course, and just hitting greens in regulation, the standard ball strikers. I mean, you look, Willett won last year, which was awesome. Willett was, he took Rahm like to the shed. I mean, but he beat him by 3 strokes down the back 9 after Rahm was, I think, leading, or Rahm was contending with him on the last day. And then before that, Molinari, who we mentioned. And if you think of, Molinari probably has the best course history of anybody. The game that he has is he gains off the tee because he's in the fairway, hits every green, and then you get lucky with the putter. And he did that, every time he came here. So that kind of does fit a little bit of Fitzpatrick if he can find that approach game. I mean, he's more accurate, plays well on difficult courses. He's probably not deserving to be 9,800, but my gut always ends up going with Thomas Peters because he just flushes it. But he literally, like, he needs to learn Sergio's technique of putting, because he's arguably one of the worst putters that you can find out there, or else he would be doing what he did at the U.S. Open every single week, where he's up there in contention. And last week he missed the cut because he missed, I think, 2 or 3 strokes putting in 2 rounds.
Just based on like the style of player that we've seen, shouldn't Matthias Schwab play really well here?
I would think so. He's been such a train wreck. It's sad that, like, I mean, maybe, and that's where the separation does have to come in, where I want to jump in a guy who plays well on the European Tour on the PGA when he plays over here, and I get, you know, a little too antsy with it and want to not wait and see and be early. And oftentimes, you know, a 30th-place finish on the European Tour or on the PGA Tour is as good as a top 5 on the PGA Tour in some of these, you know, stronger or on the European Tour in some of these weaker fields. So it's tough to judge with Schwab because he struggled at Corrales. He did do well when we were on him at the CUDA, but I'm probably waiting and seeing on Schwab's return. I would probably go into the 8K. So if you remember last week, I loved Lucas Herbert. I don't know if you followed him at all, but he was the 36-hole leader. Yeah, and then he shot 78 on Saturday. So he literally 8 over par, and then he came back and shot 6 under on Sunday to lose by 2. So imagine losing by 2 after shooting an 8 over par. So I think going back to him, I would just be remiss if he won this week after being so close last week with a terrible 1 round and not throw out the other 54 holes. So I think I'm going to bet Herbert again. And I love the Scot who looks like our Andercust, Bob McIntyre.
Yeah, the Scottish Andercust. I mean, maybe he's permanently cursed. He has switched caddies, didn't he?
Yeah, he's using Brooks's old Challenge Tour caddy. So that was tough. It was a family friend. Like, he's never won. Like, literally in his professional, like, OWGR sanctioned career, McIntyre doesn't win. And he said that like, he came out and said, I need to get over the hump, and this was a tough decision for me, and hopefully this caddy can, you know, help me get there and not just be a friend for me. So I think you can get him close to 50-1. I think he's a strong bet. And we mentioned going back to Sergio on the PGA Tour. Aaron Rai won last week, and his game is hitting fairways, hitting greens, and making putts when he can. And if he doesn't contend, it's because he normally didn't putt well. But he actually did it from the bad wave. So he was one of, I think it was only 6 golfers who finished in the top, 7 golfers who finished in the top 25 last week from the bad wave. And Rai won, making up that 4-stroke difference. So that was pretty impressive. And people don't like backing a winner, but you're getting 40-1 on Rai at 9,200. You might be a better DraftKings play because of ownership, but I think he's intriguing too at 9,200.
So the only ones that really stuck out to me, just based on their odds and their pricing and the sort of upside that I know that they have, just when you get on the British Isles, Haotong is usually pretty good. And we know that he can flash that like best in the field upside at everything that he does. He can also be like the worst fucking guy on the planet at the same time. It's just so variant with he's going to do. But I see him at 60-1. He's in what, the low... Haotong is $7,800. Like, isn't he the sort of upside? Like, the guys around him, like Gavin Green, the Juice Lutner, Victor Perez, Mike Lorenzo Vera, like those type of guys. I think that Haotong is the best player of all those guys, even if he's not the most consistent.
I agree. I like Haotong a lot. You know, his upside is leading through 36 holes of the PGA Championship like he did. I mean, he's a European Tour winner. You know, Mike Lorenzo Vera, he's consistent, but he's literally never won on the European Tour before. And also, Haotong finished 14th last week, again, in that bad side of the wave. So looking at and just kind of reading the tea leaves, that game, you know, was top 5 last week for him. So getting him at 7,800, I do agree that he is a strong play there. So there's another one at 7,100. So again, we talked getting early on guys on the PGA Tour. Guy by the name of Garrick Higo, 21-year-old South African who won 3 weeks ago at the Open Day Portugal. It's going to make his debut here on the at Wentworth. And again, he got full status on the European Tour because of his win. But this kid stripes the ball, so he leads in ball striking. I mean, he's averaging in his, it would have been 18 rounds that he's played with laser data on the European Tour. He is gaining 1.8 strokes gained ball striking per round. So for 7,100, he's somebody that I want to be on too. So I don't know if he can win at this big of a stage yet, but I think it's a fair discount for how well he's performed on the European Tour and his little sample size.
So this is Garrick Higo?
Higo, yes. I think he's probably like 90 to 100 to 1, 7,100.
Should I go back to my guy Klinholt again? He's just the iron specialist.
So you might be a whisperer on some of these guys because Kinholt played pretty decent last week. You talked about Mark Warren, who so you're nailing two guys that finished inside the top 6. So maybe you're actually the Euro specialist here because both those guys, Warren, I don't really know how to predict with him. He did it from the bad wave too, but he came off a miscut. He didn't do well. He's got some old history at Wentworth, so you're still getting a decent number and a decent price on Mark Warren and Kinholt. So I think those guys going back to him is not a bad move.
Yeah, I see Higo right now at 125 to 1.
Yeah, I think he won 2 of his first 7 ever OWGR sanctioned events. He's very young. He beat Coetzee when Coetzee was a clear leader. His odds in some of the Challenge Tour fields that they've had as European Tour events over the last few weeks have been 18, 20, 22 to 1. So getting him 125 in this field, coming off of he did really well ball striking last week, I think he's worth a shot. If I can find triple digits, I will definitely get him just for the each way on that perspective.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with Hautong and Higo as my 2 bets from the Euro. Is there anyone else way down in the pack, low 6s on DraftKings that people should be looking at?
It's just a little hairier this week down here. We've long been talking about Guido Migliozzi, who, after being the best ball striker in the world, he's kind of what your Si Woo and Luke List on the PGA Tour is for me on the European Tour, where you're going to get 150 to 1. He can pop anytime. He's probably not somebody you need to roster on DraftKings, but I would hate to ever miss out on a win on him. So I always kind of throw a saver on him. I like Junhyung Wang at 6,600. He came off a really strong week coming out of the bad side of the wave, finished 14th. Really good ball striking last week, and then a first-round leader bet who's in the good side of Thursday's wave, and he's a classic Thursday warrior on the European Tour, is Callum Shinkwin. So Shinkwin led in ball striking last week, has had middling performances here at Wentworth, but I think he's missed his cut in his one appearance, but he loves a Thursday. He's in the good side of the wave. So I think you can probably get 125 to 150 on that first round leader for Shinkwin. So I'm going to be placing that bet too.
All right. So Euro first round leader, Shinkwin, 125 I got him at. So I'll do the each way on him too. So if he comes inside the top 5, I'll be pretty good with that as well. I'm just adding that to the cheat sheet right now. I didn't think I'd end up betting so much golf this week, but here we are. Since there's no NFL games to bet, since everything's off the board, might as well bet some golf.
True. Let's hammer it home. They'll probably give us more bigger contests too as it goes. And they did juice up some of the European Tour contests for those that want to play high dollar stuff. There's a new 180 they introduced at the 2 max. They're previewing a few new contests on that side of things. So the more they fill and the earlier they fill, the better they will be. So I encourage anyone who wants to dip the toes in. This is a great week to start.
All right. What is the good wave, by the way? Is it the AM, PM?
PM, AM right now. So if you look, it's going to be I think it was 30 mile an hour winds Thursday morning. Yeah, gusts up to 38-ish mile an hour on Thursday morning. In the afternoon, it's not like it's significantly lower. It's probably 10 miles an hour lower. It's going to be windy all day, but also on Friday, there's not much wind in the morning compared to the afternoon. So it looks like that stack may get it on both sides.
So the PM AM Euro stack. Might have to go shove in some Euro lineups now with this PM AM stack and see how it works out. I actually have a good track record with Euro golf because I don't overthink my picks like I do on the PGA Tour. It's I know that guy. He's pretty good. I'll use him. Not this guy's ball striking has been good 8 weeks ago. And now I don't overthink it. It works out well.
It's smart. That's realistically, and those that are unfamiliar with names over there, that's the way to do it. I think that's And the contests aren't huge. You don't have to hit the absolute nuts to win big over there. You're also not going to win 100K, but you can win, $1,500 from, sometimes, I mean, the 6 of 6% over there gets real low because top price guys, the variance, you could see miscut from higher dollar guys, almost like last week was for it. And that's a standard European Tour week. So I encourage everyone to play because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you can check out all of Sky's work and all of his stats up at ftndaily.com. You use code Mayo, you get yourself a discount on that. So go check that out. My betting cheat sheet for the Shriners and the Euro, now that I've cobbled this all together, picks to win. Morikawa at 22. He's down to 16. I don't love that, but I bet him at 22. So what do you want me to tell you? If you want to bet him at 16, go nuts. I think he has the best chance of winning, besides Bryson. Wolf, 25-1. Fowler, 39-1. Will Zalatoris, 66-1. That's where I got him as well. No each ways on those, just straight wins. The bombs, Norlander, 125. McCumber, 175. At 225, you just talked me into that one. And Jason Duffner at 300-1. Those are all with top 5 each ways. Top 20s, McCumber 5-1, Duffner 7.5-1, Dillette 14-1. My guy, the best of man, Dillette. First round leaders, all with the top 5 each way. McCumber, DeFew, Hama, Sue, Duffner, Laird, and Dillette. Those range from 110 to 250-1. Over in Euro, Hautong and Higo, 55 and 100. And Euro first round leader Shankwin at 125-1 with the top 5 each way. One and done, I'm using Wolf. Jeff had to switch his pick because he already used Louis, so he is now using Harris English. And Cust, Sky, this isn't good. He's using Scotty Scheffler.
Oh, no, that's tough. Tough scene.
All right, I think that'll do it. Yeah, got anything more to promote?
Yeah, you talked about it there on FTN Daily. We always have, I always put up 2 Wednesday videos that are on the site already today. I broke down the European event even deeper than we spoke. And then I always like to preview just some of the niche styles that they offer on DraftKings. So there's always a tiers contest, smaller dollar. But again, if someone's not playing a ton of volume and wants to get unique with it, I always think the PGA tiers contests are always fun. So I always do a little 10, 15-minute hitter on Wednesdays for that. And then you'll find the 7 under 7 article, 7 under 7K this afternoon. But, our team, Axis, Drew, yourself, Jeff joining on board. We should have some Jeff content on FTN today. So really excited for what's ahead.
All right, I'm Pat Mayo. So going forward, the PGA and Euro show is going to be on Wednesdays. My first look will be on Mondays, and Tuesdays will be a very short show to get you ready and prepared for what you need to do. In the meantime, use fantasynational.com for all of your research to make your selections, be more informed, use all of the tools to make this all easy on yourself. Go to fantasynational.com/Mayo and get yourself a discount. Smash the like, give me your favorite sleeper, rate and review the podcast, and that will do it for me. My cheat sheet will be up on DKPlaybook.com later on Wednesday afternoon. I'm Pat Mayo. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!